No, Mom's gonna do the turkey. You know, the other one's ambrosia, so I guess we gotta get those miniature marshmallows. And I'll do the crescent rolls and we do the cranberries. You know I can't cook.
I understand. I had a reservation. Do you have my reservation?
Yes, we do. Unfortunately, we ran out of pups.
Double bacon cheeseburger is for a cop.
What's that? You gonna spit him?
No, I was just telling him that so it makes it good.
But the reservation keeps the car here. That's why you have the reservation.
I know why we have reservations.
I don't think you do. If you did, I'd have a car.
Don't spit in that cop's burger.
Yeah, thanks. Roger.
Yeah, well, I'll see you tomorrow then. Gobble, gobble.
Double double.
Give me a liter of cola.
A what?
A liter of cola.
Liter of cola? Do we make liter of cola?
Or you just order a large farva. I don't want a large farva. I want a liter of cola.
I don't know what that is.
Liter is French for give me some cola before I break loose.
All right, relax.
Okay, I believe you have to fill out a form for that.
No, I'd like my money back now.
I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. You see, I have to fill out a form, and well, you ate most of it already, so.
I'm sorry, disgusting breakfast, but we are on lunch menu now.
I want breakfast.
So you can't have it unless serving it.
Mister, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna keep 100% of you.
Is there a problem here?
I'd like some breakfast. We stopped serving breakfast.
You know how to take the reservation, you just don't know how to hold it. And that's really the most important part of the reservation, the hold. Anybody can just take it.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this. Can't touch this. My coronavirus hits me so hard. All the teachers say, oh my Lord, COVID is stressing me. All the updates from the CDC. Lights off, can't be done. I look all around this town. I've had no luck, and these are the things that you can't touch. I told you, students, you can't touch this. You better pull that mask off. You can't touch this. It's the CDC, not me. You can't touch this. Hey, don't wash your hands. You can't touch this. And plus, let's all be safe. Don't wash your hands so rude. Back up 6 feet. You better not cough and you better not sneeze sanitation. Hold on, let me check your hand. Not under your arm like that. Like that. You're all clear. Don't do that. Everybody says that this is too much, and these are the things that you can't touch. No, I told you. You can't touch this. Why are y'all standing so close? Back up. Can't touch this. Every time you see me, Dr. Lee is sanitized. I'm gonna keep my head clean, but the cases are on the rise. Now, why would I ever stop doing this while others getting ill? I don't want to be sick. I've been through all the classroom from the stairs into the gym. It's legally Dr. Lee, your doctor, late. Look at the rock, can't touch this. Can't touch this. Break it down. 6 feet. Stop. Sanitize.
Good morning, everybody.
Sanitize.
Are you sanitizing?
So we thought that was pertinent. Obviously, thanks for taking the time this morning to talk about customer experience. So I thought I would start with a few books. Jeff, maybe he can talk a little bit about Carl Sewell's book, pretty old book, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that one, Jeff.
Well, you know, you're right. It's certainly an old book. And one of the things that everybody's been hearing about me is how I'm saying, you know, the old saying, everything old is new again. And we're talking about customer satisfaction. And this guy was basically he built his business, and it's a big business. And he started with a caddy store, and then he got a Lexus store. And it's basically about, as it says there, how to turn a one-time buyer into a lifetime customer. And way before there was all these programs that you could buy and everything else, he was doing everything to take care of customers, to the point that he used to have a tech on call every weekend with a fully equipped Suburban to go out and help people anywhere. Instead of roadside assistance, it was his assistant. Guys, just phenomenal. It's definitely worth reading.
And if you're not familiar with the Apple Experience by Carmine Gallo, a really good book on how Apple changed retail, and really good about how managing customers' expectations and a bunch of other things. The Nordstrom way, Nordstrom has some pretty unique ways to deal with customers, but more importantly, they really celebrate excellent customer service. In an era where retail is dying, I think they're one of the few success stories. So a great book on Nordstrom, the retailer, if you're not familiar with them. I recommend all three, actually. So obviously myself, Ian Nethercutt, and Jeff Poe, our co-host. And thanks for joining the show this morning. So I'm going to let Jeff go over his slide here.
So, this was something that I wrote after reading it on LinkedIn and stealing it from somebody. So no, yes, I plagiarized it. So I saw this posted on the weekend by a person out of Australia. And it basically says, you win your company lots of deals, you sound smart in meetings, you work really hard, you dress sharp, you're tech savvy, you connect with all the right people. You network on LinkedIn, you come up with game-changing ideas, you invest in new business models. If you treat people badly, it's not going to end well. How you treat others determines your career success. Everyone has the capacity to be kind. Kindness is a differentiator between those who seem to win and those who are fulfilled and happy in their career. So it's a double-edged sword.
Thanks, Jeff. So a few housekeeping items. The AutoHub show is for our guests, not the host. It's your show. Please mute and unmute yourself. You can also click raise your hand if you have a question, or you can put it in the chat box. Obviously, I'm moderating that, and we'll call on you. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience on the call, so let's share ideas and respect each other's time. All AutoHub participants have agreed to be open to be sharing ideas with and happy with others using them. Absolutely no selling, please. AutoHub is an open discussion with a focus on improving business. We value everyone's input. Speak up and bring value. Don't be afraid to brainstorm ideas and ask questions. Be respectful for everyone's time. After all, we're all busy professionals. Please do your best to stay on topic on the call. Don't forget to challenge our speakers and help them bring value. Vendors speak. Jeff is the host of that show. It's on Fridays, and that show is about selling. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we're actually looking at changing the vendor speak, because I think some people don't really understand what that, but here is the opportunity for somebody to reach out to the audience, to the people that join us. They get our promotion. We're running about, depending on what happens with our email guys, between people, excuse me, Amanda, we are running between 1,500 and 2,500 people on our mailing list. Ian's pretty good at hiding things and then all of a sudden gets caught. And this is an opportunity for you to actually, present your wares to somebody and to anybody that wants to listen. So it's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jeff. So we have two great guests today, Vick Kovacks from Dealer Intelligence and Amanda from Ladies Car Care, I believe.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Amanda.
That's okay.
So we're gonna start with Vick. So go ahead, Jeff.
So we have here our first guest is Vick Kovacks, president of Dealer Intelligence, and no, it's not some secret spy agency, but it's a way for dealers to
sometimes it is
become intelligent. So Vick started in the car business when he was 2 in 1975, and he's has his own marketing company in 2002. He's built over 1,000 websites for various dealers, and one company was ASL Internet, which I remember. And Vick, tell me if I'm wrong, was one of ASL's logos a shifter, a car shifter?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, one of the original ones. He's been so many different things. They ended up selling it out to Quebecor, and now he's a dealer intelligence, got WHY make appointments. So, Vic, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I'm pleased to be here, able to explain some of things that have made us successful over the years with all the companies that we've done, because at the bottom core principle was always customer experience, whether it was the dealer, whether it was the customers that were dealing with those dealers. So I love the subject, and I think it's very important for everybody to understand how important the customer experience is to everybody.
Perfect. So Vic, tell me something. Where can we pick up extra prospects at the dealership? And how can car dealers enhance that customer experience? We're actually chatting about this before everybody joined us.
Okay. So one of the things that BDCs generally do is work with prescribed lists, whether those lists are from CRM or whether those lists are from leads coming in, or whether it's from people that they want to bring in as far as loyalty customers go. There's a couple of other places that a good BDC can find good prospects for the dealership. But what's more paramount is to build a good relationship between the BDC manager and all the other department managers, and that becomes very important, because one of the things that you want to do is be able to go to any of those department managers to find prospects. So my number one tip on that is to go to the sales manager, go over his service list for the next day, make sure, see if it's on your CRM, get your sales manager involved, and get your sales manager to pick his top 5 vehicles that he would like to look at the next day. So with those top 5 vehicles that come in, when the service department is finished with them, let the sales manager know, let the sales manager go over that vehicle with them, and then let the sales manager have the keys, so that when the service customer comes in to pay for the vehicle servicing, he goes to the sales manager to finish off the other explanation on why he should be trading that vehicle and maybe trading keys. Make sure that the customer is always in the loop on what you're doing. Make sure that you've got the permissions from him to do that kind of appraisal on his vehicle and options review. But done properly, it really enhances the customer's feeling that the dealership is looking after all his questions, and gives them some insight on maybe future being able to trade out of his vehicle at that particular time. Of course, the body shop, any big jobs that come in, have the body shop manager give you a call. Make sure that you can get that vehicle looked at, take a look at the histories, sit down with the customer when he comes in, when it's ready, ask the customer if they can do the appraisal, or have the BDC phones that customer, makes the appointment to have the appraisal and options review done on it. It's generally better to do that before he takes off with the vehicle, because he still has the accident in mind and that kind of thing, right? So that would be another good spot to pick up customers from the BDC. The third is going through the CRM and looking for vehicle recalls that are coming in. So they're not necessarily somebody that will do something right away, but it's good to keep them in your follow-up systems, because when vehicle recalls happen again, they're more likely to say, you know, if I'm having problems with this vehicle now, maybe I should look at something else. And they're a good source of prospecting and that kind of stuff. So those are my top 3, kind of, other than the regular lists we get, inbound leads and outbound calls for events.
And thanks for that, Vic. Question. Obviously, a lot of dealers are working with remote staff, whether it be a BDC environment or sales staff these days, especially I find in Ontario, but probably also in Quebec as well. As these staff members who were in the store are now transitioning back to um, from office to home or now from home to office, you have any tips on productivity as they speak to customers, say, not in the dealership or not in that facility?
Yeah, I think that it's really important that everything is scripting out. Right now, we have Calgary making customer calls to our dealers in Australia. So remote to us doesn't mean anything. It just means that they may not be in your general vicinity, but we always believe in good training so that people that are calling in our positions anyway can actually deal with a lot of circumstance, replies, problems that come up, issues that the customer may have. One of the things that we make sure though, before we send anybody home or work from home or they start with us that are in a at-home environment, we want to make sure that we get proper IP clearances to any CRMs or programs that they're using. It's really tough on the first day if you're going to be phoning from a lockdown IP that you can't get access to it. So that's one of the things that you must be able to overcome. The second, of course, is that they have enough connectivity no matter where they are at, because nothing's worse than halfway through a phone call, your call is breaking up. And whether you're using video or dropping signals, you want to make sure that there is no interruption in how you're communicating with your customers. The third that we want to make sure of course, is the proper equipment and tracking software so that you're able to make sure that there's proper communication. Your employees are making the calls. We go the one step further and we make sure that we get complete transcripts of all our calls and look at them to make sure that everybody's keeping on track. And we're always talking to them all the time. We're making sure that just because they're at home, they don't have husbands jumping out of the shower or kids running around in the background, especially if they're on Zoom, which has happened where we've had somebody talking and one of the kids come into the room and they're dressed in a suit and the kid comes in with food all over their face, and that happened to us a couple of times. But
that's why we have virtual backgrounds, Ian and I.
yeah.
What about managers? Like in a traditional BDC department, you have, you're talking to customers on a regular basis, and you have a manager there really to handle those tough calls. How would that work in a remote situation?
Well, any one of our calls using our software, and I shouldn't say our software, but the software that we use, we can transfer at any time. So we have an alert warning system that there needs to be turnover. We send in a message and then we transfer the call. So that's really important to have that kind of software. Again, that goes back to making sure your proper equipment and software is up to date. Today, communications is probably the easiest part of any sales force. We have a multitude of different CRMs and telephone platforms and video platforms. So you have to make sure that whatever you're planning on doing, the equipment that you're using and the software you're using are compatible to A, the customer experience you're trying to offer, and B, the backup is there for all your agents or all your employees.
Well, obviously, you've been in the industry for a long time, and today, obviously, there's probably more video and other communication there's ever been. Do you find that that's an integral part of the process today that wasn't the case, say, 5 years ago?
Yes. I mean, it's really good to be able to have your service mechanic or service advisor going to a car and explaining the problem over video and sending it off to the customer to get approvals to do an upgrade, whether it's suspension or engine or whatever. Same with sales, where the question may have, a customer may have a question on a particular vehicle, and being able to show the customer that particular piece of equipment that he was questioning, or documents, or and a face really sells. A face is worth 1,000 words, of course, because they can see the face and how it reflects and the expressions and all that kind of stuff. But we still believe that the call, the actual voice and how it's translated, and how you're explaining yourself, and working with key phrases and that kind of stuff, that's more important, we find, in the long run. So, but video, I think, is becoming more and more relied upon and used in a lot of circumstances.
So, you know, one thing I was remiss for everybody on the line here is dealer intelligence is a centralized BDC for a variety of dealer clients, obviously, correct?
That is correct. Yes, we do inbound and outbound.
Yeah, so I apologize. I should have mentioned that earlier in case anybody wondered the BDC term. But what would be some of the problems you've seen with, in terms of a BDC and the customer experience, and how can you figure dealers can fix them?
So one of the things we've been doing this for 6 years now, and before COVID, we had up to 6,000 leads coming in per month, which was over 200 a day. One of the things that we have never used in our years of doing this are autoresponders. When I had ASL, we did a white paper for CADA, which was the customer experience with dealers as far as internet response and internet sales experience goes. And one of the things we did when we did our customer shopping, and we looked at over 16,000 leads that had come in to our many dealers, and we had at one point over 900, was the fact that out of all the dealers that responded, only 5%, excuse me just for a second. Yeah, just over 5% did it within a 5-minute turnaround time. What that means in terms of sales to the dealer was there was an 80% chance the customer would deal with that dealership if they got back to the customer within 5 minutes. After that, the spread went larger, and the biggest part of that survey was the last part, where 62% didn't get back to the customer or took 2 days to get back to the customer. So one of the things that dealers did is they put in autoresponders to make sure that they got into that 5-minute response time. And we do mystery shopping today. And one of the things that we found out was, or in a lot of cases, that even with the autoresponder that got there before 5 minutes, the next call took an hour and a half. So nobody talked to a real person till about an hour later, or a response didn't go back for quite a while. So that is one of the biggest pitfalls that I find with the dealers, is they rely on AI or autoresponders too much. The customer still is looking for a unique experience. They still want to talk to a real human. They still want to know steps on how to proceed to the next level. And one of the things that we train our people is how to work to the different levels and what the customer expectations are. The other big problem we find, and we find it with us and our dealers on inbound and outbound calls, and our outbound calls are generally for events, but the communications within the dealership sometimes are lacking. So we will be making appointments, especially with events on a 2-day or 3-day or 2-week event, where we make the appointment, we send out a VIP invite, we explain who will be there meeting them, that their vehicle be ready, and we're trying to set that experience up to be unique for that customer. And when the customer arrives, there's no vehicle ready, there's nobody there to meet them, nobody knows that there's an event going on. Um, it really is a downgrade in the customer's expectations. So that is the biggest, one of the big, or two of the biggest pitfalls I find with running a BDC is, and generally within the dealership where we deal with dealers that have BDCs that don't have regular meetings with their sales departments or service departments. They're different silos. A BDC may take care of 5 different dealerships. And what has to happen within those stores is really good communications between the BDC manager who's making appointments for everybody and those different department heads, whether there's one store or whether there's 5. I hope I didn't put everybody to sleep with that answer, sorry.
Thanks very much for that, Vic. Yeah, I'd agree. Communications between the different departments. I believe we had Janice on the show a while ago, and she was talking about how starting a salesperson training in the BDC is their first day on the job as a real eye-opener for them in terms of the value of a BDC department, but more importantly, how important it is to have great communication. Because if they elevate that experience on a call and then the customer comes in, they don't know what's going on, or they're not expecting that customer, it really doesn't look good in the eyes of the customer, and it really causes a problem. So I'm going to bring Amanda in. Amanda's got a lot of deep experience in the auto industry and also went to Georgian College, so she has some marketing experience as well, which is fantastic. And maybe, Amanda, you can tell us a little bit more about your transition from retail, working in the service side of the business, to helping retailers.
Yes, so I started off working in the shop straight out of high school. And I did that for 6 years. And I also was working in the service shop up here I'm up north in Barrie while I was doing the automotive marketing program at Georgian. And since been a service advisor, assistant service manager, ran an aftermarket shop. Up until recently, the past couple years, I've been more involved in the sales and training side, not only training sales representatives, but also training technicians and service advisors. During college is when I started my small company called Ladies Car Sense, where I had a lot of interest because being a woman and working on cars, a lot of people were asking me that own small shops in the area. I would start presenting to their women clientele, and then it kind of just grew from there, and doing lots of different presentations for the dealerships. And a big thing is a lot of dealerships I find are lacking that actual experience for clients, and they don't really get that. So I try and help them in different ways create that experience to keep them coming back, whether it's for sales or service.
And what have you learned in terms of customer experience from your experience, in terms of like the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess? Like, what have you learned that works well, and what have you learned that doesn't work so well?
So what I've learned is when I'm going into dealerships, and I've also, it's funny, I've done a lot of business out in the States prior to COVID, and they work very differently for their dealership and the way that they operate than we do in Canada. Just giving you an example of, there's no business office. It's just your sales representative will take you through the whole process until the delivery. So I learned that that's very different, but also what I've learned going into different dealerships, it doesn't matter the brand, it doesn't matter if it's a dealer group or just, a smaller kind of mom and pop operated facility. I find that the way that we're training initially, whether it's sales or for the service team, is we're just training them on, here's a system, here's how to use it, and the customers are just coming in. There's no training on how to be a people person, in a sense of creating a relationship with clients and when I went to Georgia, and one of my professors told us that it stuck with me through my career. And he said that, you know, as soon as we realize we're not in the car business, we're in the people business, no matter what sector you are in the industry, once you know that, you're going to become very successful because it's all about relationship selling. And I don't think that that's really kind of drilled in on the way that we're training the sales representatives and we're training our service advisors, or even, you know, training the technicians. With what I do, I actually kind of what you were talking about, James, with the video systems, is that's one of the things that I do. And, you know, I'm training technicians to do something that they're not technically getting paid for, because they have to go over and above, you know, doing an extra step, and it takes an extra couple minutes. And when you're flat rate, totally understandable. But going back after initiating a new process, I'm, you know, getting feedback from technicians saying like, I don't like to do it, but I know the customer really likes it. And, you know, in the end, you do help with sales, but they do it because they know that the customer likes it. So we kind of should implement that mentality in a lot of different ways, and starting, you know, from the BDC department. You know, having the rapid response, you know, is nice because the customer feels acknowledged. But James, you're right. It's almost an hour until someone physical, an actual person, follows up, and sometimes within that hour, they're looking at other vehicles at different dealerships. So I think it's just honing in that customer and how valuable they really are. And I think that's not really taught, and it's unfortunate, you know, upon hiring someone either in the auto industry and having to kind of break their bad habits, but even hiring someone who's never been in the automotive industry.
Well, you know, it's very funny how you brought that in there, because when Vic mentioned about the artificial intelligence responding in 5 minutes, and that's basically so people, it sounds like you're also saying the same thing. They're going through the motions, but not really doing it. So how do dealers get a second chance because of this to make a first impression with customers? And what advice can you share for them to do that?
So another one of the things that I have done, and this is where, again, Ladies Car Sense came from, is inviting customers back into the dealership, whether it's through, you know, with car care clinics. So lately I've been doing a lot more of technology nights. So if you're inviting the customer back in after they've either purchased, or even if they're a longtime service customer and they haven't been to the sales side recently, it's nice to bring them back in, create a nice sales-free environment, and just give them knowledge. That goes a long way. I have clients, you know, after the presentations just say, wow, this is so cool, because it's completely free to the client, but they're learning, and the dealership is not, it's not sales pitchy. It's not like, hey, come to our event and we're going to sell you this, this, and this. It's like, hey, we're putting on an event and we want to teach you about your car, and we want to teach you about how our service department works so that we can better serve you. There's the biggest thing is when, you know, a customer shows up for a service appointment and they think, oh, at 10 o'clock, there's a technician waiting in the bay, wrench in hand, for my car. And a lot of customers don't understand the real process of how the dealership works, especially in the service side. So I think bringing them back, having an event, a safe space for them to ask the questions. A lot of times it's unfortunate, but in the sales department, there is quite a bit of turnover. So sometimes, you know, they're coming back 3 or 4 months for an event and their sales representative's already gone. So where's their connection to the dealership, right? So also creating that second impression can be as easy as the sales representative calling them 2 weeks after they pick up their vehicle and say, you know, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, just want to follow up and, you know, see if you got all your radio station program properly, and how's it running and how's it doing, and go from that personalized aspect. Call them on their birthday, send them an email on their birthday, you know, on the anniversary leading up to when their lease expires, send them the delivery picture of when they first picked up the vehicle, and create those warm and fuzzy feelings that they had at that time. There's lots of things that we can do, and it's just I think the biggest thing is keeping in contact with the client and letting the client know that they're not just a number, that they're, you know, they're your friend, they're your customer, and you care about them. And that goes a long way. I see, like, and this is one thing that I say a lot in my training is everybody wants to, even though I'm a girl, everyone wants to know a guy, you know, like, oh, my dishwasher's broken. Oh, I know a guy. Or like, oh, I need the gutters cleaned. Oh, I know a guy. And I always teach people, be someone's guy, you know, be that person that stands out and, you know, be that personality that everyone's like, yeah, they were really great. Hey, you're looking for a new vehicle or like you need to service yours, I know a guy.
So Amanda, isn't that a little bit, with all this things going on now in the world, the air about correctness and everything else, being somebody's guy, does that not provide you any bite back?
I say guy or gal in a sense, be someone's, you know, person. I always say, because we can relate, like even I'm constantly in front of women, I'm like, hey guys, what's up? Or like, hey, you know, it's just human nature. I definitely try and stand out in ways to keep my presence as an automotive lady, but that's where you kind of find who you're talking to and who you can connect with. Like when I'm speaking with technicians and there's 30 guys in a room and I'm the only girl, I'm going to be like, be someone's guy. So yeah, just knowing your crowd.
Good for you.
And there's been a lot of comments from Troy talking about culture and also talking about customer service training, specifically in the hotel industry. What do you recommend in terms of training for service staff, for example?
So I think one of the greatest things a dealership can do is make sure that their sales and service departments have meetings together, because we always forget that we're working for the same company, because it's like, oh, the salespeople are always asking the service people for this and vice versa. And there's always like that division between sales and service in a dealership. And I believe that having more even company events, like I worked for a dealership that was a small town in Cambridge dealership, and every month we had something where we shut down the showroom after 5 o'clock on Saturday, and we had a sense of community within the dealership. So I think that's very important, because then it's not the finger pointing when things go wrong. You're all working for the same company, and I really think reinforcing that relationship between your sales and service team is very important to take care of one another when things unfortunately do go wrong. But with the service training, it's again, you know, asking the right questions. Okay, so, you know, for service advisors, there's so many times where I'm training them on, you know, the service intervals and why they need to do things. So to have not only the bedside manner in a sense of being a customer facing employee, but also knowing the product and knowing what, you know, they're talking about and knowing what they're selling is also very important.
Another great comment, and I guess a question from Jim. What does my operation stand for? What do customers believe you stand for? Awareness is of that gap is where you start. That's what he thinks. And I think that's a really astute comment. And I have one more question too. What best practice can you share in terms of creating a great customer experience the first time? Because clearly you do a lot of cleanup after the first time, but how do you get it right from the start?
Getting it right from the start. My best practice would be to let your personality shine through, especially if you're a sales representative, and find common ground. Ask your clients questions. If you see, you know, a lead come in and they're purchasing an SUV and they're trading in a Mazda 3, why do they want an SUV? Ask the question so that the customer can tell you more about themselves, and they'll be like, oh, actually, I'm moving up to Barrie. Oh, I live in Barrie. Oh my goodness, winters are crazy. You know, like you have that common ground with your client. It can be easily done in the sales department and then also in the service department. You know, if you're doing your walk around, if you're lucky enough to be a dealership with a service drive-through and you see there's a car seat in the back, be like, oh, I see you have a car seat. Do you have, how many kids do you have? Or is it boy or girl? Oh yeah, my little boy plays hockey too. Establish that common ground, because that's how you start a relationship with your client. Number one, that is easier for trust values as well. But getting the employees to ask the clients questions and to create relationships, I think is a really nice and easy starting point, and it can go a very long way with that employee's not only reputation of the company, but also even their own clientele base and possible referrals for the future.
It's
Right.
very funny. You're mentioning the service process is actually not unlike the sales process. You engage your customer, you ask them questions, you find out about them, which then opens the door for you to deal with something.
Yes.
It might be a little difficult for a little easier for a guy to ask somebody questions about their kids than for a guy.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, ladies can, get away with a little bit more in that sense, just because also I've done a lot of studies on, how just the psychological part of the male versus female kind of works. And believe it or not, even females in the service side, we actually bring a little bit more ease, because there's not the intimidation of that one-upping. Because if you're a guy and you're like, hey, so, this is happening to my car, and you're asking a question you don't know, you're kind of like, oh, well, he's a guy and he's going to think, I'm stupid or whatever. I don't want him to think that. Where a guy will come up to me and be like, hey, this is going on, because he won't feel stupid in his mind, because I'm a woman and it's okay. But yeah, I think that it is very different, and hopefully going forward in the future, again, these processes will start to be in place upon new hires, and I just think company values and personal and relationship values should be instilled, whether it's sales or service.
No question there. And it's very funny, because I remember 20 years ago how this exact topic, these exact words, and it was 20 years ago, the manufacturers were jumping on the bandwagon, saying exactly that. They made dealers fly to Barrie in the winter to do a seminar on it. Yeah. And now they're kind of falling off that.
Well, that, and I find it's funny, because when you go into a dealership, every staff room has like the core values of the company, and it's always about the respect and relationships and this and that, and that's great because it's in the handbook when you're first hired, but like, what are they doing to keep up on that? Especially sales, they have the weekly sales meeting that could be, instead of yelling at people for what they did wrong. And I've been to a lot of sales meetings where that's what it is. It's a sales manager just angry at his staff, and it's not fun. But instead of that, and it's all just, a numbers game, to bring that relationship selling back and to bring those core values of where that company first came from, I think would really go a long way. And in the end, the clients will benefit because they will actually have an experience. Realistically, a lot of times you don't get an experience when you go in and service your car, or you're looking for a car. You just, a lot of times you're looking for that warm and fuzzies, and you don't get them. So that's how I kind of try and instill, like, bring someone some warm and fuzzies, make them feel good, make them feel excited, because realistically, with all the manufacturers out there, a car is a car, but you're selling a feeling, and no one really needs a new car when they're buying a new car, unless their car is in the service department and a service advisor has put them in front of you because it's too costly or it's dead on the side of the road. It's a want, right? And so to sell a feeling for a product, you can also do the same thing about an experience at a facility. And I think that can be definitely lost in translation many of the times when people are coming in. So
we had another question from Tiago. how do you work the company values with the individuals at a dealership?
Well, I think it's important to keep reinstilling those company values and what that company was originally built on. Again, some of the companies will have that in, their waiting area. A lot will just have it where the staff only can see. But I think reinforcing that and even spending, like the weekly, bi-weekly, monthly meetings and just kind of going over that. And not just saying like, yeah, here at Amanda Motors, we really want, respect. Give examples of the situation of, today, this is what this person did in the sales department, and that's about our core values, and that's respect. Or this is what happened in the service department, and that's respect. So using things that happen within the dealership to kind of reinstate, like, this is what we're about as a company, and giving thanks and appreciation to when it's actually shown.
So can I just make a point here? I agree so much with you, Amanda, and a lot of dealers may, and especially in today's market, may not realize just how much customers value that more than just anything else, because we can tell with a customer when we talk to them asking about a certain salesperson or a certain situation or a customer experience they relate to about that dealership. Or we have the other ones where we'll take a phone call or an email about a certain vehicle, and then on another dealership we're dealing with, that same customer is still asking about another vehicle, and that has increased a lot more now today, where we're seeing customers going to multiple dealerships, not really loyal to a particular brand nor dealership. And I think a lot of it has to do with that customer experience, where they do go to that guy, or they do go to that special place that they consider really comfortable. And I think that has to come back. That experience has to come back.
Very true.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, because customers today not only, historically maybe didn't think car buying was the best experience, but today they're just scared more in general. So it's even more important to create that better experience for the customer today, especially if they're looking at multiple dealerships, which we all know they are doing remotely. They're spending more time evaluating that than they used to.
It's a good point, Ian. I was just going to comment that so many of the customers in today's world are comparing us to other industries as well. And, whether it's the spa or their dog groomer or the restaurant they were at or whatever, or there was a reference earlier to the hospitality industry. Well, if you came from a hotel stay at the Fairmont where they blew your socks off, and then you go in to get an oil change and they don't even know you're supposed to be there that morning, they don't know who you are, and they forgot your car, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, that's the comparison that the customer's making today.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it today, that's a very astute point. When you look at it today, customers are looking more and more for better quality experience, especially as demographics change. That customer that, maybe is under 40 today is much different than that customer who, say, is over 50, who maybe isn't as conditioned to those remote experiences.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, Barry. Sorry, Amanda, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that the customer expectations have definitely changed as well, and have definitely gone up because of everything that's been going on in the past 10 years with social media and instant gratification, that's what they're looking for. So they're looking to be, if they put in, a request for pricing, they want to be acknowledged. It's instant gratification that they know that I know that I want that car. But also with our expectations of service, you're right. It's funny because on the sales side, I think there's higher expectations to deliver an experience. And then as you go into the service department, again, being an advisor, their expectations would be up here. But I had to kind of bring them down here to how it actually works in service, that, halfway through their vehicle life cycle, their expectations are very little, depending on the dealership. And it's unfortunate. And I think that we need to kind of adhere to that. And, you know, Barry, what you were saying, like coming in now that I'm technically a client and I have been for about a year now, not working at a dealership, it's very frustrating for me when I'm bringing my car in for service. It's very frustrating. So I can't imagine on the customer point of view having to deal with that every time. So it's yeah, I think that dealers really need to kind of pull up their socks and, you know, like this whole conversation has been, create that experience that clients are now expecting and looking for.
So we see in what I do in the industries is we see in the real estate side of things, even for example, in the US, if you're looking at a listing, you're probably going to get a phone call before you've clicked off of the listing.
Oh,
It's
wow.
that urgent. So I'm sitting there surfing a house and I call my wife over, she looks over my shoulder, and at that point I'm getting a call on my cell phone saying, hey, seeing you were on looking at this listing number, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any specific questions for me? Where up here, and Vic was referencing it earlier, we're talking hours before we get back to people. Like it's a night and day. We have huge growth opportunities where we can actually wow the customer and keep them from moving on, which I think you've referenced a couple of times. So anyway, thanks, Amanda. It was really good.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they don't remember us when we follow up to them, you know, a bunch later. You know, somebody phones them, hey, it's so-and-so from here. You were looking at my Mazda 3. And they go, which one?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I think is very important today is that we're also competing with experiences from, say, Netflix or Amazon, where people are using those sites maybe every single day.
Mhm.
And then they go into an automotive experience and they're not able to get that same experience, not only on the website, but even over the phone. I mean, I had a friend of mine whose son wanted to buy a car, and I tried my best to help the dealer who I know, but he ended up buying a completely different brand just based on experience. It had nothing to do with the car.
Mhm.
I mean, he actually preferred a different brand, but because the experience was so poor, he ended up buying a completely different brand. You know, so that's how important it is. But anyway, I really appreciate all the great thought. Any other questions from anybody? Don't all speak at once. I guess not. Well, thanks very much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. I got a few more slides today. I put this one together because I feel customer experience is about planks. So to me, it's make it memorable, empower your staff, ask great questions. Just some great best practices there from all the books I've read over the years. Make it special and have fun. I think that's something we don't do enough in the car business. And when I see dealers online promoting what they do from all over North America, they're doing all these things. They're making it special. They're making it fun. And we had George on last week. Yeah, he's a little bit dynamic, but he makes it fun for people. Yeah. And you know, I mean, even if you're not looking at buying a Toyota, for example, he's going to stand out just because he makes it special. He makes it entertaining. And I think that's really what you got to look at today, especially in the time of social media.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah.
Just in your last slide, it has smile big. That's just the very first step that walking the dealership as a customer, as I am, and most of us are, as we buy our cars. Often we don't see people even smiling.
Yeah.
But it's so important, the first step, right?
Yeah. Be happy to see the customer. Be happy they showed up.
You know, Vic, I have a question for your suggestion for your people as they do videos now. Get the filter in there that you see on Snapchat with the big smile.
The big, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a little thing, but it matters. I mean, it's been proven on phone calls that if you have a mirror next to you when you make phone calls and you're smiling, the call goes better. And that's also true live. I mean, people, especially today, they're looking for some positivity. I mean, there's enough negative in the world. I mean, be positive about it, right? So I 100% agree.
So we do a lot of inbound leads, hard copy. In other words, whether they're from Trader or Carbarus, that kind of stuff. And we find we have to make the return email happy because they have to be a positive message in just about every return that we do. it's just too mechanical these days. So you got to have some sort of personality going out. So
next week's show, thanks, Vic. Next week's show, we're doing women in automotive. We're going to have a panel show again, much like we did last week. So that's almost a lightning round. We're having Pamela Pearson from Centez, Christine from the Car Lady, Sandra Conrad from Dealer Pilot HR, and our nice American lady, Melanie from Celebrity Motors. She's the marketing director for a high-end dealer group in the greater New York City area.
If I can just bring up a point on that there, we've got a lady, actually, she just, there she is, named Sue Finneron, who, boy, you speak about a lady in the automotive. She's a trailblazer out here. And Sue, I'd love if you could join us next week. I think you'd add a great extra input there.
Cool. Thanks,
Go ahead, please.
And then future shows, Kim McPherson from Sell It Smart. She's going to be on Vendor Speak this week. We still got to confirm that, but I believe that's what's going to happen. Women Automotive. And then we're doing a Vendor Speak. We're still waiting for someone to speak on that, the 21st. And then Used Car Wholesale Perspective, August 24th. Jeff's confirmed a number of different people for that show. It's going to be a panel show. So if you're curious about how to do better from a wholesale perspective on used cars, that's one of Jeff's passions anyway. Yeah, that's a great show for that. And
I love my used cars.
Exactly. And then we're taking a break August 31. We won't be doing a show that week. And then we're back on September 8th. And of course, as always, we're all ears for show ideas. So feel free to reach out to Jeff or myself. And if you've been a speaker and want to be on Vendor Speak, again, feel free to reach out to Jeff or myself, or you can send us an email through the AutoHubShow.com website. Thanks very much for the time today. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much for everybody who took the time to be on the show as well. A recording will be going out probably later today, so people who could make it, they'll be able to see the show in its entirety. Any other final thoughts, Jeff?
No, I just appreciate everybody attending. And some new people. Thank you very much, Vic and Amanda. It was a great, really enjoyed all your input, and everybody with the questions, thank you so much. We're looking forward to it, and I'm expecting Friday to be quite the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Insensitive to time, thanks very much for attending, and we'll see you on the next AutoHub. Bye for now.
Thank you.